So today I'm going to teach y'all how I bench my setup, and I'm going to explain a lot of the common misconceptions and a lot of things I see people doing that I feel like holds their bench press back. To start, I'm going to show y'all how I set up. A lot of people, they set their upper body and then they try to set their feet. I don't like setting up like that. I like to set my feet and then I use my feet to set my upper body. I'm using my legs to drive myself into position to try to get me up on my nape on the top of my traps, and I'll explain what that means. A lot of people that swing out from like seated up like this, I don't really like that. I got this from Kirill, one of the greatest bench pressers of all time, right behind Julius Maddox. And what he would do, he would kind of hang out behind the bar here and stiff arm the bar before he swings out. And then he would grab the bar and swing into position. I feel like you get a lot tighter when you do it in that order. So what I'll do, I'll swing out, and if you will watch my feet, I'll push through my heels real hard. And as soon as my heel makes contact, my feet set my hips, my hip sets my lower back sets my upper back. Is all connected. So as soon as I swing out, heel slam, I'm set. I can just go. My setup is 100% ready. Another thing, if you look at the bar here, you have some wiggle room in the J hook. Whenever I swing out, I'm not unracking from back here. Let's see what it looks like. That's a large range of motion. When I unrack, which I've self-unracked 535 in a meet and I feel better taking a self-unrack than I do taking a hand off, the range of motion is very small. It's here to here. Very short. Cutting off probably 2 inches of the unrack. That'll save you a lot of time, a lot of energy. It is a lot easier to press big weights than it is to do a pullover with the same exact weight, and your shoulder position is going to be way better. You're just starting, you're going to be way tighter, your back's going to stay tighter, and you're going to be just way more powerful if you quit unracking from the back of the rack. Roll it forward and have the bar here, as close to the rack as you can get without hitting the rack. So whenever I'm back here, before I swing out and push through my heels, this is where I take my breath. 5 reps pretty easily on 1 breath. Notice how I took my breath here and I didn't. Because what you see, every time I'm having movement here, that means your shoulders are moving. You're not gonna be as tight in the back, your arch is gonna cave some, and there's gonna be someone who's like, oh, well, there's great benchers who breathe and when they bench press. Okay, but Julius Maddox, the greatest bencher of all time, doesn't. And if he can hold his breath with damn near 800 pounds, you can probably do it with 135, 225, 315, whatever kind of weights you are pressing. If you wanna stay tighter, avoid injury, and move big loads safely, holding your breath and maintaining a good shoulder position is necessary. Whenever I do have to breathe, let's say I'm doing a hard set of like 12 with like 385, 400, something like that. If I breathe, it's not, it's very small. A little bit out, a little bit in, just enough to not pass out. You don't have to have 100% of your vision when you're bench pressing. You don't have to be comfortable. You don't have to not cramp. You're allowed to be uncomfortable. You're allowed to be tight. You're allowed to cramp. You're allowed to be a little blurry. It's okay. If you want to bench press heavy weights, comfort is not the goal. Tightness is. Next, we're going to talk about the unrack technique. I'm going to talk about wrist position, how I hold the bar in my hand. So a lot of people, they unrack and they swing out and they try to unrack from this position because they're thinking they're keeping their shoulders tucked in. But when I try to unrack like this, it kind of, it's not very smooth. And the reason is because my joints are not stacked. My elbow's ahead of the bar. So whenever I unrack the bar, do it more efficiently, I do this. Instead of being here, I internally rotate my shoulders some. And whenever I pull it out, that's when I set my lat. So it's here, and then I sit it into my, kind of sit into my shoulders after I unwrap. For how I hold it in my hand, I squeeze my pinky real hard, and I try to sit the bar at the heel of my palm. So my wrist isn't 100% straight. I see a lot of people try to bench press like this. That's not the case. It's here. I'm just pushing my heel of my palm. It doesn't matter if it's close grip, wide grip, whatever. The heel of the palm into the bar the entire time, and that's the main thing. If you look, it's not 100% straight. It's not all the way bent back. It's kind of a little bit in between, so it's about there. Like the knuckle of my first finger is about pointing to the ceiling. That's about as much bend you want back, like in your wrist. And the reason you don't want it all the way straight is because then the barbell would be directly like over this. Your joints aren't actually stacked. If you let a little bend come back, you get directly over your wrist, you get directly over your elbow, and that's joint stacking. Across from joint stacking, you also want to stack your body on top of each other. I'm going to explain tricep to lat, what that means for the bench press, which is a cue I really use for squat as well, for all big three. I'm going to talk about what it means in the bench press. And I'm also going to explain like the bar path and what the bar path on bench press does. Same thing, set it behind the bar, stiff arm, big breath, heels, go. And if you look, I touch pretty low. I touch here, and I don't finish over my face. I'm not finishing up here. I'm not starting here and touching here. It's not like doing that is gonna destroy my shoulder. I didn't just cripple my shoulder benching 225 like that. I'll even train guillotine press sometimes where I bring the bar all the way up here because it really stretches out my chest. And for pec development, that's one of the best ways to bench press. You know, you're not gonna be able to use extreme loads. You're not gonna be able to lift as heavy, and it's gonna be way more of a vulnerable position. So when I'm benching for hypertrophy, I may bring it a little higher. If I'm doing variation, Larson press, maybe here, but I'm benching for power. It's down here. And you can look at my pec and you can just see it. Very stretched out here. When it gets down here, it's not as stretched out. My pec isn't as vulnerable of a position. And when I get down here, you kind of find your lats. And like when I was talking about joint stacking, a lot of people think like as long as your wrist is over your elbow, your joints are stacked, and that's cool. And that's correct, but there's more to stacking your joints. Instead of just stacking your joints on top of each other, you want to stack your body tissue on top of each other. So I have this thing, this meat on the back of my arm. It's called a tricep. A lot of you probably don't have that. I also have this thing, it's called a lat. So what I'll do, like a lot of people, they say elbows out and flare your elbows when you bench press. I don't really like that because it looks like this. It's like, it doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel powerful. You can see there's no real lat engagement. And then other people, they'll even say, tuck your elbows. So it looks like this. And that just feels terrible. On my shoulder, on my pec, I'm not getting any pec recruitment. I don't think you want to flare your elbows. I don't think you want to tuck your elbows. What I do is I don't even think about that. I think about rowing it down. If you watch my lat, I'm sitting this on this, and I'm stacking it on top of each other. That's how I lower the bar. It's all in my upper back. It's not, my elbows aren't here. They're not chicken winged in. They're directly under the bar with my lats engaged. So that's what tricep to lat means, that you want to touch low, you want to finish low. I'm not finishing over here and shrugging up. Like I stay down here, I almost hold the bar probably somewhere between here to here at lockout, and when I bring it all the way down, a little lower. So touch lower for power, touch higher for stretch. If we're gonna talk about grip width, a lot of people are like, where do I grab? It kind of depends on what you're trying to target. If you grip wider, you're gonna get more chest. If you grip closer, you're gonna get more tricep. So it depends on what your goal is. If it's an arm day, gripping closer is gonna be a good idea. If it's a chest day, gripping wider is gonna be a good idea. And I think you should train everything in between. So one day a week, I might go index finger on the ring. One day I might go pinky on the ring, and the other day I might do like thumb leads from here. I've trained 2 fingers on smooth, even to 4 fingers on smooth. I think training all of them, all the grips are great for having a big bench press. Getting strong on all of them and not leaving a weak point is ideal, but it depends on whichever, like whenever I compete, I'm index on ring. That's my strongest grip, so on my heaviest days, that's what I go with, that's what I practice. I use all the other ones to complement my main grip. So it's not which grip should I use, but it's which grip should be your main grip, should be your thought process. You should train them all. The last thing I'm gonna cover is gonna be leg drive, and we're going to talk about how to use it and when to use how much. I leg drive myself into position and I slide myself up the bench really well, and I usually have to chalk my back really well, by the way, especially if I'm using a bench like this. It's real slippery because I'll slide right up the bench. The chalk will give you a little more friction, and if you're using leg drive and you don't have friction, you're going to slide off the bench, or it's just going to be real sloppy. It's going to hurt. It's not going to feel good. So you want a quality bench, first of all, and even if you're using a quality bench, I still chalk my back anytime I go above 405 because it helps with your grip. But for leg drive, whenever I'm setting up, I swing out, same thing. I'm about 80% leg drive here. 80%, I hold my leg drive, 85, 90, and once I get here, 100. I have leg drive the entire time. My leg drive is active. I'm using it to keep me wedged into position on top of my traps. But I really do like gun it and use my body to kind of chest bump the bar. And I'll like throw my lats into it and use my lats to throw the bar. I'm using everything in my power, everything from head to toe to move the weight. It's not like I'm just trying to isolate my chest. And even if your goal is a big chest, benching massive weights for a lot of repetitions, to be able to handle that volume is an amazing way to go about that. Thank you for watching. Hope to see y'all bench some big weights. Thank you to the sponsor of the video.